Dear students, good morning. Let us start the discussion on today's newspaper, that is 3rd April 2017. The first article sharpened the focus on growth by Rangarajan. Here we will be discussing about the factors that are hindering the growth in India. You all know that the Central Statistical Organization gives the growth forecast. As per its estimates, second advanced estimates, the growth is expected to be 6.7% in 2016-17 compared to 7.8% the previous year. So, any growth to occur, there are two factors which are important. One is investment, the second is incremental capital output ratio. So, the flow of investments ensures proper growth of the output. But however, how much of the capital is required to get 1 unit of output growth? We call it as incremental capital output ratio. So, the investment flow has to be high, ICOR has to be low for a better economic growth. So, with less capital, we have to produce more. The productivity of the capital has to be high. If ICOR is high, it means the productivity of the capital is low. So, whatever the systemic bottlenecks, all these come under the definition of ICOR. Why the investments are coming down? So there is no proper climate for financial intermediation in the country. If I have to find one single reason, that is non-performance assets of the bank made the banks risk aversive. And second is, there is a twin balance sheet syndrome which the country is suffering from. So what is this? The corporate balance sheet is going negative. So the bank's balance sheet is also proportionately going negative. In these circumstances, a vicious cycle is being developed where the banks are aversive to give the new capital to the industry, and capital is also not interested to take the extra loans to expand the capabilities. And external economy is also not very good for India to take up the expansions. So private sector at this point of time may not be willing to take the risk. Then who has to bring in the investments? Then public sector has to take a primary role. And second is how this NPAs issue has to be addressed. Now, Arvind Subramanian last week he has said that the government has to take certain haircuts. What he meant by haircuts over here? Now, if you want to come from this vicious cycle, then the government has to constitute an asset reconstruction company in the public sector, and the bad loans need to be transferred to the asset reconstruction company so that the banking sector sheet gets cleaned and a kind of a revival starts in the economy. That's what is been stated. And one thing for sure is this: lending institutions, unless they are active, unless the problem of NPAs is solved, if financial intermediation will not be a sure shot solution for economic growth in India. And previously we had long-term finance or long-term lending institutions. Slowly these long-term lending institutions also have transformed themselves into commercial banks. So the author says that it is the time we shall revive these long-term lending institutions. This is the essence of this article. The next is, digital push must be disability inclusive. So you all know that India recently has passed Physical Disabilities Act. In this, it uses the word universal design principles. Either you are making a building or building a website, everywhere you shall make them accessible for the physically disabled people. So it means at every level of planning, you need to keep in mind this universal design logic. And second is, every development has to be disability sensitive. So disability inclusive development, the government has to focus. So the Physical Disabilities Act, it has given definite timelines during which a building or a website has to transform itself into the principles of universal design. If not, there are also punitive actions for the same. And second is, the Prime Minister of India has launched accessibility campaign. But many of the government programs, they are not been well synced with this accessibility campaign. Either you talk about Hurdai, or else this Amrut and smart cities mission, nowhere there was no emphasis on access. So that's the reason why a synergy has to be developed between various government programs and the problems of the disabled. And then coping with summer. So in this, what we talk about is how the governments, municipal bodies, health institutions has to cope up with growing heat waves due to rising in the surface temperature in oceans and then climate change. All these are going to create more hottest summers in India. So, the National Disaster Management Authority, it has produced certain standard protocols and safeguards for the people. So, the civic authorities like municipal bodies, public health institutions, they have to closely work with the disaster management authorities towards finding a solution to this. Now, here one word which was used that is called albedo effect. What is this albedo effect is? Now, when sun or sunlight comes on, the house or every material also reflects it. The reflectivity, that's what we call albedo effect. Snow has got the highest reflectivity. So that way you need to remember this albedo effect. A case study. How to fight the heat waves. There is a case study. In the United States and Europe, they have brought in this green and blue shades or green and blue urban spaces. So the increasing tree cover and also making water available, these are going to help to fight the heat waves. That's what is US and European Union did, which India also can learn from them. Next is whine and whimper. So in this article, the recent Supreme Court judgment is being analyzed. The Supreme Court of India has held that within the distance of 500 meters, no liquor has to be sold around the highways. So later it has extended even to the bars, hotels, and restaurants. No, initially it was no liquor retailers have to be there. Supreme Court said it is not just the liquor retailers; it is the hotels or restaurants. Everywhere there shall not be any liquor sold. Then obviously liquor is the major source of income for many of the state governments. If you go to the states like Goa and Puducherry, there the government sustain on the liquor sales. So what the governments are trying to do or supersede this particular judgment. So they have declared all the national highways as the urban roads. Why? Because urban areas, these do not come under this particular order. And second is, the toughest orders or toughest solutions, these are toughest laws, these are not a solution for weak enforcement. Understand, unless the law is properly enforced, people will lose respect for the rule of law and the power of the sovereign. In India, the major problem for the failure of rule of law is the laws are toughest, but the people, when they violate, or they violate it with impunity, as the enforcement mechanism is very weak. So make a normal law and effectively implement the law, that makes a big difference. If toughest laws are being made, they are normally used to misuse them. That's what my point of view over here is. And Supreme Court has to make sure that its order shall be implementable. Then only the respect and legitimacy of its orders is been maintained. If the state governments are easily able to circumvent its orders, the very spirit of giving the order gets diluted. Now let's get into the open-ed page. India must reaffirm its Paris pledge. Now you know that the President Trump, he wanted to move away from the Paris Climate Change Pact, and he is taking a series of steps to reverse the President Obama's actions to fight the climate change. So in the present executive order, he has reviewed the US Clean Power Plan, so in which the coal plants are being discouraged and renewable energy is being encouraged. Now, the government's moratorium on coal mining, etc., is also being lifted by Mr. Trump, and he stated for opening the existing thermal power plants. So this is going to be harmful for the climate change, fight against the climate change. And see, the Paris climate change itself, it is based on a virtuous cycle. What do I mean by a virtuous cycle over here? A trust and confidence is being built across the leaders, and there has to be a peer motivation. So one country achieving the targets, the other country also gets the objective to achieve the targets. And a pressure among the different countries or moral obligation among the different countries, this will be created. That's what is the plan when we talked about commitments. So understand, under the Paris climate change, nothing is pushed onto the heads. These are the commitments which are declared by the different countries. So, United States, if it moves out of the Paris climate change, obviously the incentive for the other countries to fight the climate change comes down. So, it will make the vulnerable countries much vulnerable. So, India is going to be worst affected because of climate change. In this context, what India has to do? So, India can take forward its commitments rather than dropping them, and it gets the greater legitimacy or morality to talk about the climate change pacts. And second thing is, tomorrow if the Trump government changes, if the climate change has been believed to be real, as the president changes, obviously US can be brought back into the climate change negotiations. No country can afford to get away itself from the climate change negotiations. So in this scenario, India cannot gain its legitimacy. As today stands, India can take the legitimacy in climate change negotiations by sticking to its path. And if we observe, India's national targets are being considered. These are much higher than the targets which it has specified in the Paris climate change. So, India can safely continue with its renewable energy, which already Prime Minister Modi has assured. Now, here, with regard to this reader's editor's article, he spoke about the John Rawls. So there are two principles of the John Rawls which he has spoken about. So John Rawls is a question last year. So see here, the John Rawls theory of justice. The John Rawls theory of justice. So Rawls' first principle guarantees the right of each person to have most extensive basic liberty compatible with the liberty of others. And second principle is inequalities are legitimate so long as they are designed to yield the maximum benefit to the least advantaged members of a society. So, inequalities are meant to benefit the poor. Yes, these are necessary. And then liberty has to be maximum for every individual, and liberty of one individual shall not disturb the liberty of other individual. And these two statements are not mutually exclusive. The second statement also has to adhere to the first statement. So this is the John Rawls theory. Try to just go through it. So let's come to the front page. Swap terrorism for tourism, Prime Minister tells the Kashmiri youth. You know that Prime Minister is in Kashmir to open this 9.5 kilometer long or longest tunnel in India that connects the Kashmir and Jammu. So this is Chenani Nashri all-weather tunnel. So at this meeting, Prime Minister has clearly stated that the terrorism did good for no one, and we have to promote the economic development, and that's why he stated that terrorism has to be replaced with tourism. Parties' views sought on electoral bonds. Already we have discussed enough on the electoral bonds. So let us wait on this and let us see what are the changes we are going to look for. Now, let's come to this. Judgment Day soon for China-backed Myanmar project. So remember this project name, which is very much in the news. That is Meet-Zone project on Irrawaddy River in Myanmar. It can be asked for prelims. So what is the speciality? Previously, the military regime, it has given permission for the Meet-Zone dam, and it is going to ecologically damage the entire region, and there is a lot of opposition from the people. So 90% of the electricity which is produced from this dam, it will be taken by the China back. So in this context, the local resentment is very high, and Myanmar government wants to move away from this. So then China is asking for $800 million, which has been spent already on the project. What Myanmar is contemplating is to give another dam for development and cancel this particular proposal. Let us see how it goes on. From our prelims perspective, Meet-Zone Dam, that is $800 million, in Irrawaddy Delta, that's what we need to remember over here. I have given the notes to you at the end. It is available to you at laix.in/civilsprep. Thank you very much. All the best. I think new video, fourth video on current affairs booklet, Laix Weekly, are being posted by Sandeep sir. Please go through that video at Law Excellence. What is that? YouTube group, YouTube page or something. So go through this Law Excellence page. There you can find this video. And these booklets are available to you at Image Runners in Delhi, Vikas Bookstore in Hyderabad. Thank you very much. All the best.